Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about my nostalgia for old games and stuff like that. I thought I would cover some things though. A while ago, I said I was going to explain the origins of Thrakkerzod, and then I kind of glossed over that on accident. I wasn't thinking. Also, someone asked me about Patreon. This was quite a while back, and I've been meaning just to respond to that and say, they said, how is Patreon working out? And it's working out well. We actually, it's not quite like it says it is, like it says that we get like $80 per video, but we really don't. What it is that it just shows, like, it tabulates everything that everyone, like, if you get like, 9 people that say they're all gonna give $10, and it just takes all that and it goes, you'll get $90 per video. But what really happens is you get, like, people will say, $90 or $10 per video up to a maximum of like $20. And so it doesn't work exactly like it says, but it's more efficient than donations. It's actually working well. In fact, I had more car trouble today, and I'll admit that the Patreon donations have probably saved my butt on that, which is really good. I appreciate you guys with the patrons, the Patreon stuff. It's been good. It's helping us out. So yes, so there's that. Okay, but anyway, though, Thrakkerzod. What shall I say? Thrakkerzod, yeah. So what actually Thrakkerzod came from is this was a character, if you guys are familiar with The Tick, there was a character, I don't think his name was Thrakkerzod, but it was something similar to that. It was something like Thrakkerzod from Dimension 1B. And he lived in Apartment 1B, I believe, in the cartoons. In the comic, he was from somewhere else. Like, I have a Tick comic where Thrakkerzod first originated. Or maybe my friend has the comic and I borrowed it from him. I might have returned it. Somebody has a Tick comic where Thrakkerzod first appeared. And anyway, though, he's just an interdimensional gelatinous character that wants to eat brains, but he's actually very refined about it. He's very polite about wanting to eat brains. And so anyway, though, when I approached Iggy with Egil, like early on when they first introduced, he just told me, he goes, I say, so what's your name? And he goes, Thrakkerzod, because he didn't have a name at that time. His original name was Jack, but he quit going by Jack because he was always telling everyone fake names. He'd actually erased his name from the character sheet, and he didn't write Iggy on there until way later when he became a public criminal by the name of Iggy. And actually, that's what we're getting into today, is where we last left off. Iggy had just won a race because all of his opponents had mysteriously exploded, and for whatever reason, he was invited to the Capitol building to collect his winnings. Now, what was strange is you think that there was some kind of plan involving the Capitol, but actually there wasn't. What happened that day was that Sandler had no plan. And I don't know if he had no plan because we derailed the plot too heavily, or if because he just didn't have a plan that day, because sometimes he didn't. I mean, like, he would do things where he had a diagram drawn out of that rune portal thing that we had found. And what he would do is he would hand us, like, the image that he had drawn. He had hand-drawn this. And he would expect us to look at it and somehow notice, like, a discrepancy in the pattern or something like that. Like, we would realize that he'd drawn a certain rune to be symmetrical all around, except for in one place. And that one place would be, like, the key to enter. And he wouldn't let us roll intelligence if our character, like, if we couldn't tell, he wouldn't let our characters know. It was something like he forced us to roleplay that kind of crap because he would spend all this time building it. It was not the first time, and it was not the last time that he did something like that. And almost every time he did that, we either had to just, like, whine for an hour before he would let us, like, roll to get a hint, or he would just let us completely flounder and give up on the entire plotline. Which is what happened, I believe, with this rune portal thing, is that we just gave up on that entire plotline because he sat down and he's like, here's an image for you to look at. Try to discern the secret that I've hidden in there. And we went, no, we're leaving. Goodbye, rune portal. I guess we'll just move on to the next thing. So, yeah, I think that he didn't have a plan. So what he wound up doing instead is when Iggy arrived at the Capitol building, he went inside and they told him to wait in the waiting room. And he didn't want to wait in the waiting room because by this point Iggy was already fairly rebellious. He wasn't totally off his rocker. He still cooperated with stuff. But he didn't really want to wait. And so he pulled the look over there trick and he just ran through the doors. And at first it was just one of those things like he got lost in the hallways. And it was just one of those things he was rolling. And he was rolling really poorly. And then it occurred to Sandler that wouldn't it be funny if he took a wrong turn into something bizarre? And after that, things got gradually weirder and weirder as he kept taking turns and he kept rolling badly on his navigation skills. Not that he had any way to navigate, there was no maps or anything like that. and he kept taking wrong turns, and then he got lost into like pocket dimensions. Stuff where like everything was composed of smiley faces, or at one point he took a turn, he walked through a door, and he was trapped in a vending machine, and stuff like that. I remember there was something about Big Bird, I believe, that at one point devoured him, and then he wound up in another room after sliding down Big Bird's gullet and landing into this new room, and it was like, wow, the government building here in Lycereal is terrible. So yeah, that was bureaucracy at its finest, and that was one whole session. And to give you any perspective on that, a session would be like an entire day. Like we would get together on the weekend on a Saturday, we would show up in the morning, and we would play until noon, then we'd stop for lunch, and then after lunch we'd come back and we'd play until dinner. And if we were having a really good time, we would get dinner and then come back and play some more. So a whole day of role-playing is like seriously an entire day of playing this game. And Iggy was the only character who could do anything for that entire day, and all of it was just a series of gradually worsening insanity. And the reason why this happened was because every time Sandler put Iggy in another weird situation, another time he got swallowed by Big Bird, another time he got trapped, in a vending machine, he became a sandwich, I think, for a little while. And then he was rescued by like one of the workers there. And I believe that Iggy stole his hat, and then it turned out later that the hat had magical properties, and it could turn him into various creatures. And this is important. He had a hat, a top hat that he wore, and the top hat allowed him to transform into things. It was an illusion, but the illusion creature was so convincing that it could really, like, he could turn into something really horrible, just anything that he could imagine, and it would terrify the heck out of people. So he stole this hat from a little turtle man, and was running around with that. And after enough twists and turns, after hours and hours of doing this, finally he comes face to face with none other than God. God himself. He's just sitting here in this room and asleep, because the way that the game's lore worked out is there's this god called the Dreamer. And the Dreamer was the source of all things. The entire world, all of existence was the dream. And there was a devil figure. I can't remember what his name was. It was something like, not Zhen, but it was something like that. And anyway, though, so Zhen was like a horrible nightmare creature, and Zhen was constantly at threat of waking up the Dreamer. And if the Dreamer woke up, then the world was over, because the entire world was the dream, and so you didn't want the Dreamer to be frightened awake. So the first thing that Iggy does is he walks up to the Dreamer, and then goes boo, startles the Dreamer awake, and so the Dreamer wakes up. And that's it. The world should end, right? This was Iggy's entire intent, as he wanted to destroy the world by waking up the Dreamer. And he didn't think that it really was the Dreamer, because the Dreamer, that's like being inside a dream and then coming outside your dream and then waking yourself up. It's like there was not really possible according to the lore of the book. But Sandler didn't read the book. And so Sandler just had the Dreamer wake up, and he just goes, "Oh, hello there!" And so Iggy was like, "Oh, hi God, how's it going?" And he goes, "Oh, it's fine. It's good to see you, Iggy. I've been waiting for someone to come and wake me up this entire time." And at this point, Iggy was just one of those, like, it was like, what? You've been waiting for me to destroy the world since day one? You've been asleep for all of existence. So, yes, the Dreamer had been waiting to be woken up for a very long time. And the Dreamer says, "Yes, of course I've been waiting for someone to wake me up, ever since those evil elves put me to sleep and started enslaving the world." And so that was a slightly baffling development. And Iggy said, "Oh, wow, that's really terrible. I hate elves. Maybe I could help you out with that whole elves taking over the world thing." And so the Dreamer says, "Sure, yeah, of course, that would be great. Iggy, I need you to go find the Door of Time and fix all the problems that the elves have created with their evil time travel device." And so he gave Iggy this key, which, this was something that Iggy did all the time. He would steal stuff and then not write it down. And so he took the key and he didn't write it down on his character sheet. And there was a rule in our games where if you didn't write stuff down, you didn't have it. And so this came up to bite us in the ass way later when we made it all the way to the Door of Time and then didn't have the key because Iggy neglected to inform Sandler that he just didn't write down the key of time on his character. So yeah, so he takes it, he goes, "Oh, sure," and then takes it, doesn't write it down, knowing full well that it will be a serious consequence way later on. And so the Dreamer goes, "So now that you're my quest guy, is there anything that you need?" And so Iggy says, "Yeah, I want 3 things, and I can't remember what the third thing was, but the first one was that he wanted to be the world's best gunslinger. He goes, best gunslinger ever, that's what I want to be. And the dreamer says, okay, done! And he gets a gun skill of 50. Now, to put that in perspective, the gods have a gun skill of 10. So he is 5 times better than a god at firing weapons. And this made him just absolutely ridiculous. He was a character without peer. I mean, I would have to like sit down and really crunch the numbers to figure out how high of a character this Iggy finally became thanks to this move. But for whatever reason, Sandler decided that Iggy needed to be a level 50 gunslinger. So, yeah, impossibly high. No game could normally ever get you that much experience. It would really be fundamentally impossible. However, he was that now. The second thing he wished for was endless pockets. And that was actually later on we made the joke, because he had the habit of not writing stuff down. We were like, you know what the dreamer gave you? It was a hole in your pocket. The pocket became endless that way. See, so yes, so he wished for endless pockets, but the dreamer refused to give him that. He goes, I'll think about it. And he said, okay, done. And he wished for a third thing, but I don't remember what it was. It was something else ridiculous. I think that he wished that the dreamer would just kill all the elves. And the dreamer was like, no, I may be all powerful, but it's not like I can just solve all my problems as if I were a god. So that didn't fly. It was something like, Iggy outsmarted the whole concept of meeting God and having God send you to go do, like, oh, I can't do that, I'm God. So yes, God was all-powerful, but not quite all-powerful enough to do things without Iggy's help. So that was when things took a turn for the truly ridiculous, because by then, Iggy was no longer capable of being stopped. That level 50 gun skill allowed him to do anything with guns. The guy could open a letter with guns. I mean, he could, like, using one bullet probably write you like a sonnet, you know, in the sky with ricochets. He could probably, it was just crazy, like the kind of things that he did. So the dreamer said, thank you very much for coming. Now please go on your way. It'll be great. It was great having you. Have a good time. I'll see you later. Good luck with killing all the elves, or rather, righting all the wrongs that the elves did. He never explicitly said to kill all the elves, but Iggy had decided that this was his one true God-given mission now, was to just kill all the elves. He actually didn't care much about the Door of Time. He just knew that God gave him more than godlike skills in murder, and that was what Iggy planned to do. So he got out of the gate. He just like leaves through the front door of the place, like he walks out of the dreamer's room, and then he's exited out of the front door of the Capitol building. And so he comes back to everyone else. I believe that Sandler and Iggy were the only ones there at the time. Everyone else had not shown up that day or what have you. And he just goes, guys, I am the Messiah. And we say, oh, really? That's good. And he goes, no, seriously, I'm the Messiah. And we have a mission from God. And we say, what is that? And we say, to kill all the elves. Didn't even talk about the time key. Didn't talk about anything else that the dreamer wanted him to do. Kill the elves. That was what he interpreted his mission as being. That's what he told the rest of the party. Sandler gave one character the authority to deliver the message of God. Iggy was Sandler's Moses. And Moses, sure enough, came down with the commandments, threw them to the ground, and told everyone to kill their racial foes. That was God's word through Iggy. So yes, at about that time, a demon erupted from the Capitol building in a fit of rage, and another demon erupted from somewhere else, and they did something, and it was some big dramatic show, and we didn't care to stick around for that, so we just got on the ships and we left. Like, we didn't, whatever Sandler had planned with the demonic battle and the demons and all that was stupid. We left. So, yes, as we were traveling, then again, we had another time shift, another one of those things where Iggy suddenly couldn't remember what he'd done that morning. And at this point, Sandler thought it was so funny that he was making Iggy roll dice. Every time Iggy wanted to do something that wasn't suffer from his ailment, Iggy had to roll dice. And it was getting to be unbearable. I couldn't play the character anymore. So I said, Sandler, I'm just going to retire Iggy. And Sandler said, no characters retire, characters only die in Children of the Sandler. So we headed off to Althing again with Iggy's new incredible powers. And on the way there, Sandler died. Or not Sandler died, excuse me. Iggy died. Sandler lived forever. Sandler never died. Iggy died. Iggy died. He just perished, hit in the back of the head, bludgeoned in the back of the head with the 2x4. We never figured out who killed him, but we're pretty sure it was Kilala, Sandler's adopted daughter. For reasons that I don't fully recall. It was something like, I believe she accused me of being an unattractive old man, or something like that. And so she felt like that was reason enough to kill Iggy. And so we got to Althing, and Iggy said, well, Egil is mysteriously dead. There's only one thing that we can do, and that is throw the body overboard as we pass over Althing and let the authorities deal with the corpse below. And so sure enough, he throws the body over the side, it explodes into the street below, and then he goes and he docks in port. The authorities could recognize his boat, however. He was flying low enough that they were able to find him, and so they tracked him down while he was filling out the paperwork to park the boat. Really, while he was negotiating paperwork, trying to convince them that he was the messenger of God and didn't need to pay for his harbor because he was sent by God on a mission. And I remember I think this is when he just started to become fearless. And they were like, "What is your mission?" And he goes, "To kill all the elves." And they're like, "Sir, I don't think that you can get I don't think you can get free parking with the mission Kill All the Elves. I think you still have to pay parking fees if you plan that." And he insisted that no, he doesn't. And so the authorities came up and they said, "Sir, we noticed that you threw a body over your ship and that body is now stinking in the streets of the Althing. We'd like you to come downtown for a little bit of questioning." And Iggy said, "Okay, sure." And so they brought him downtown and they said, "Sir, why did you throw a body over the side of the boat?" And he told them it doesn't matter. He goes, "I'm the Messiah." And they said, "That's good, sir. That's really good. So what exactly does the Messiah do?" And he says, "I kill all the elves." And these guards were elves, of course, because almost everyone was elves in the world at this point for whatever reason, because that's what Sandler decided, that the decline became a boom. So he says, "I'm going to kill all the elves." And the police say, "Oh, sir, I think that might be a conflict of interest with the government of Althing. I think we're going to have to lock you away." And this, too, is about the time when Iggy started to really learn that he could abuse the system with the arcane engineering. Because they put him in this jail cell, and Iggy requests a pen. He goes, "May I have a pen?" And then they say, "Okay, sure, here's a pen. What do you want to do with it?" And so he goes up to the back of the wall, and he starts doing this, like this writing stuff. And so he goes, "Sandler, I want to roll to see if I can invent a brand new rune." And Sandler goes, "Well, okay, what kind of rune do you want to invent?" And he goes, "A muffin rune." And he goes, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, every time that I activate the rune, it turns the thing that I have carved the rune into a muffin." And Sandler thought that this was a hilarious idea, like, "Oh my God, so random." And so sure enough, he just gives Iggy this power. He goes, "Okay, yeah, go ahead and roll. Yeah, that's high enough. You invent a muffin rune. And the wall turns into a muffin." The muffin rune was pretty much the downfall of Sandler's control of the game. From that point on, there was not any situation that could not be solved by either high gun skill or the muffin rune. Every tight situation, if it couldn't be turned into muffins, it could be shot to death. And if it couldn't be shot to death, then bullets could be used to carve the muffin rune into the device that needed to be destroyed. So, the muffin rune that was the complete unhinging of the game, the day the muffin rune was born. So Iggy broke loose and ran through the streets and went back to the ship, because who cares? That would be the first place that they would look for him. He went back to the ship where the guards quickly showed up, but then he got his guns and shot all the guards to death in the streets. And then he says, "Guys, I have a plan. Everyone buy envelopes, and then everyone buy a bunch of ink and a pen." And so he got out a pen and he started writing letters, and they were basically all magic. They were magic bombs. He created a terrorism scheme where he wrote his name out in letters. And so whenever you opened up the letters, they would just explode in a massive fiery magical explosion. And so sure enough, he wrote his name. He wrote his name in the Althing. And so the authorities, that was when Iggy became a thing. Is then they looked at the patterns and they were just like, "Iggy, oh my God." So thus began the reign of terror of Iggy. Now, you might notice that basically Iggy was the only player in the game still around. I believe that Mindy the elf quit showing up for quite a long time, and I don't recall anyone else being there for a while. In fact, I didn't get reintroduced until the game. My next character was built and ready to go, but Sandler wouldn't bring him in because he was like, "Oh, now's not a good time. Iggy's being chased by all these. This is really a lot of fun chasing Iggy around with all these guards and doing all this stuff and all this random destruction." But finally, though, Mindy came back, and then Sandler was like, "Well, if we've got two players who aren't doing anything, I guess that I could cater to you guys and reintroduce Greg's character." So Mindy the elf just teleports into existence. She's just like, "Oh, here we are. What are we doing? We're staying at a hotel, okay, in the Althing, and Iggy is a wanted criminal." And he's telling everyone that he's Iggy and also the Messiah. Everyone knows who he is. He doesn't lay low at all, because anytime the authorities show up to get him, with one bullet he manages to kill like 50 people. So he's just the ultimate terrorist. There's really his religious crusade is completely unstoppable. All he's doing now is just coming up with creative ways to abuse the powers that Sandler gave him. So Mindy says, okay, well, I guess I'll go downtown and go shopping. And Sandler goes, no, you won't. You won't go shopping. You're going to go down to the pits to watch the pit fighting. And Mindy says, Mindy the elf, she goes, okay, well, fine. I guess I'll go down and watch the pit fighting, even though my character has no real interest in that sort of thing. And so Sandler goes, you go down there, and there's one of the pit fighters is a giant wolf man named Charon. Greg, that's you. And so that was at my character spawn. That was one of the few times that Sandler actually created maybe a plausible scenario where a character could come to exist naturally somewhat. I mean, he forced a character to go and act out the stuff that needed to be done, but Charon at least belonged in a pit fighting arena. It made some sense, especially because the only thing he could do was kill and maim. He was dumb as bricks. I mean, there was the Wolfmen had like really low intelligence modifiers to start, and I took the lowest possible intelligence. So I spoke in broken English. I ran around, Charon smash, Charon like eating, Charon hungry, various and so forth, and yes. So we started off with the pit fighting thing, and the first thing that Sandler did was he threw at me his own custom-designed pit fighters, and this is part of the reason why he took so long to introduce me, because he wanted to introduce me in a way that was humiliating and degrading and made me look bad, because I made a combat character, and Sandler thought it was boring, because a wolfman he was just a big naked wolfman. Because the Wolfmen, in the book, they explain the Wolfmen don't like to wear clothes. They're rather feral. They're rather stupid. They're kind of like animals. They can communicate, but not very well. And in fact, they don't even name them, they don't name them things like Claw, because it's confusing for the Wolfmen. Like, they're like, is that order? Or is that just naming? And so they didn't know. So, yeah, he thought that was rather boring. He thought Luperothi were boring, and he decided that he was going to humiliate me on my starting. So his characters, he sent out a series of characters, but I had completely streamlined my character for combat, because I had already figured out that the only thing Sandler rewarded was killing. Because Iggy, that's all that Iggy did. Like, if you tried to interact with any of Sandler's characters, all they did was browbeat you and try to make you feel stupid in the most stupid, convoluted ways possible. Even if you got a leg up on them, something would happen, like rocks would fall out of the sky, lightning would strike, anything at all to make Sandler's characters more intelligent than the player characters. And so I just learned. It was like, I will just be stupid then. Like, I don't care. If I'm going to get penalized on a regular basis for being stupider than everyone, then I will just accept that. I will embrace that, and I will be stupid. And so I was geared 100% for combat. And Sandler had made these characters that were, like, really well-rounded. Like, they were dynamic, like pit fighters. I specialize with the net, but I can also use the trident. Charon killed things. That was all he did. So he sent out these pit fighters one at a time, and Charon effortlessly mauled each and every one of them. Just pinned them to the ground, tore them apart. And finally, Sandler ran out of pre-prepared characters, because they were all weaker than Charon. And so he goes, okay, they send out like 5 pit fighters at once, and you have to fight every single one of them. And the way the game worked is you lost dice every time you had to split your attention. And so like 5 characters, basically, I lost like all of my dice. I couldn't battle anymore. It was just one of those things. He incapacitated me by having people like surround me on 5 sides. So there was nothing that I could do. I got beaten in that battle, was severely wounded, and put back in my cage. And despite the fact that I managed to defeat a gauntlet of fighters, my owner still decided to berate me for my horrible performance. He was like, how could you lose to 5 people at once? Like 5 skilled pit fighters at one time. Oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I'd like nothing more than to sell you, because you're just so useless. You're such a bad pit fighter. And so Mindy the elf came up, and she goes, oh, if he's a really bad pit fighter, I mean, he seemed okay to me. How much are you selling him for? And he goes, how much money do you have? And she goes, oh, well, I've got like some of these earnings that, she stole Egil's money. When Egil died, she looted his corpse, and so she had his small fortune. And she goes, oh, I have this small fortune. And he goes, oh, that much might ought to cover it. And she goes, really? And she goes, yeah, there's no other way I'm going to let this character enter the game legitimately unless you give me that small fortune. So, and Mindy the Elf gave up the small fortune that we had been awarded. It wound up being that Sandler was the only one who got to keep all of his earnings. Iggy didn't get any earnings, really, except for the blessing by God, which came out of the blue. But yes, so Mindy the Elf gave up all of her thousands of dollars that she won through gambling to buy me out of the prison cell. So she took Charon home, the big wolf man, and he was a very friendly doggy. He licked her on the face. He was rather nice. He liked to play, and then he became hungry though, and so she took him back to the hotel, and Charon begins to complain. He goes, Charon hungry, And she goes, okay, well, we can't, I'm out of money now because I spent all of my money just to get you here. So why don't we wait until Daddy Iggy comes back, and we'll ask Iggy for money because he's probably stolen a lot of money lately. Because that was one of the things that Iggy did, is he always looted the bodies. And I think he had more money than any of us at that point because, in fact, he had just been looting the bodies and not spending the money on anything. Because why would you bother to spend money on anything? You only needed one bullet to kill a battalion. So anyway, so I was just sitting around and hungry, and I says, oh, Charon will wait at the door. And so Mindy was sitting around reading her book and just waiting for Iggy to come back. And so a patron of the hotel walks by, and Charon bursts out of the door, grabs the guy, pulls him in, snaps his neck, and then devours him right there in the room. This, the most horrifying thing from anything else she's ever seen. Because as it turns out, Charon was about as feral as wolfmen came. And he was not nearly worth a fortune at all. He was in a cave and not really taught not to kill things. So she panicked. She just like, oh my god. Oh my god. And Charon was just very proud of himself. He not only did he ate whatever he could manage, and then went to sleep, but became very territorial about this skull. And this was the thing, every time I killed someone, I kept the skull. Charon kept the skull. And so I was just like, yep, this is mine. And I knew that this is the character that I wanted because I was so sick of Sandler's PCs. Like, I had just reached the breaking point where I was tired of interacting with these awful people. And at that point, the only thing I wanted to do was just kill all of them. And that was the only thing that Iggy wanted to do. We were of the same mind, at least as far as how to interact with Sandler's world. We didn't want to solve the puzzles. We didn't want to talk to people who were just going to condescend to us. We wanted to kill them. That was it. That was all we wanted. We just wanted Sandler's people to suffer. So, that was the first day of Charon. Next time I will pick up, and that is when we really start to slide downhill, because then we had the team of Iggy and Charon, and where Charon became pretty much unstoppable in terms of combat, close combat. Iggy couldn't be stopped with gunslinging. Between the two of us, I mean, like, we were pretty much not a force that could be halted. So, yes, next time I will talk more about that. Thank you for watching.